Ray is one of the most unique people we've ever worked with.
It was like an instant bond.
And he just required more attention than you would expect of a normal child.
You could see it by the scar tissue on his forehead.
Boom, boom, boom. What is that noise?
Over the years, his family and his staff have tried everything. When we first came together as a team, we had just worked with a consultant who we had asked to help us with Ray, and their recommendation was to discharge him. It was trauma-responsive care that worked, that finally brought him health and happiness.
Ray is his own person, and I think the people around him are on a constant journey to understand more and more about who that person is and allow that person to emerge, even through some very significant differences and challenges that he has.
This is Ray's story.
When Ray was born, he really looked normal. You know, you wouldn't think that there was anything wrong. And as he started progressing, even during infancy, you could tell that even though he looked normal, that there were certain things he didn't respond to people, he didn't follow, people as they moved through the room, he really didn't interact with toys very much. That is one thing about Ray, is everyone said he was such a quiet baby. And while you would think that that's positive, when you consider what has happened with Ray, that he, can't speak and is nonverbal, him being quiet as a baby was actually an alarm that something was indeed, wrong. He was pretty much, the normal child, but you could clearly see that if you wanted to try to get him to engage, it was much more difficult. He just required a lot more attention that you would normally give an infant, at that same age. And as he started missing milestones, as he went through infancy, I think, about a year old, I think he was diagnosed with having developmental delays. And, clearly as he grew older and older through toddlerhood, those, issues became more obvious, and he just required more attention than you would expect of a normal child.
Other than the fact that he was a little slower, he wound up with casts on both of his legs because his legs were not properly shaped, and if you got kicked with them, believe me, you knew it.
Yes.
But it gave him an awful lot of strength in his legs.
My dad, Ray's grandfather, used to play patty cake with Ray a lot. I think, and it was started when Ray was really very young. He was less than a year old. Where I think patty cake became a real big thing with him. Yeah. And I think that, I don't know if it had something to do with where Ray was at developmentally and where he was going to stay developmentally or intellectually, but that pattern of clapping stuck with him and stuck with him. And now I think when Ray claps with you, to me that's his way of greeting you. If you're a stranger and you approach Ray, you know that he's comfortable with you if he claps with you. I think that's his way of saying hello sometimes. If he can't actually say the words, he'll clap them for you. He's stuck in the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 clapping pattern, I think, from that. How you taught him how to pull himself up.
He sat on his butt and scooted around a lot, and then he got himself up on the cupboard in the kitchen, because of course that was the room, food. And I'd put the mini marshmallows and line them up, and he went from one marshmallow to the other.
I think it was about a year old when I think that a lot of those behavioral issues started coming out. And when you think about, that's kind of the time a baby usually starts making some noises, that sound like speech. They instructed Ray's father, when Ray started the head banging, to basically ignore him.
But he wound up going to Kennedy Krieger in Baltimore twice, the first time in 96 and the second time in 99. There too, the second time around, I couldn't figure out what to do with him, and he was still experimenting with how to treat him when they discharged him.
When Ray first came in, he was
very self-injurious. He came in with his dad, his grandmother, and when he first came in, he was in full equipment, headgear, sleeves. He was strapped to a wheelchair, like he was like this the whole time. Well, when I first started here, everybody was afraid of him because he was so big. It's like 6 foot. Like, I'm afraid of him, but I was never really afraid of him.
When I first met Ray, I wasn't entirely sure that he even knew that other people were in the room. It was entirely possible that he was just living in a world of sensations, not necessarily a world of connection with other humans.
When I first saw Ray, I was afraid of him, actually. Like, just look-wise, I'm like, he's really big. He's like the biggest individual we have on this side.
My first day on the orientation when they had me on the wing, I saw him. At first I was thinking like, oh, I can't work here, this behavior, stuff like this, I can't do that. But I mean, it was cool. You just gotta figure him out, learn what he likes.
It was like an instant bond. I was like, I'll take Ray. He was a one-on-one. We could just chill together and walk around. So it was an instant connection. I always loved to have Ray.
As Ray got older, those behaviors, I think, became just more extreme.
It was one of those days where he impacted. They had a waterbed on the floor, and he hit one of the corners.
Where Ray injured his head. And of course, when he bangs his head, it's created just that scar tissue that you see.
Over many years, it was obvious to me that family, the team at that time here at Rosemary Center, were working really hard, trying to do everything they could to help Ray to be successful. Clearly, there was a need for something else to happen. I hate that helmet, and we got to try to do something to get rid of that helmet. I wasn't sure at that point what the interventions were going to be, but I'll never forget the first time that I met Ray. He was in that padded room. Unfortunately, because the self-injury would help him to feel a little bit more in control or self-regulate, that self-injury could help him to regulate his own emotional place.
Boom, boom, boom. You hear it, I'm asking other people that I was shadowing, like, what is that noise? I was like, oh, that's just Raymond.
He was just so self-injurious. Like, you didn't know whether he was really gonna make it the next day. He was covered in bruises, and his family tried the best they can, and he was at home for a very long time. And you kind of lost hope last year when he was like a thicker size. He went down to be like very, very skinny. He lost a lot of weight during his very troubling period. I think he was like 98 pounds. But he started gaining weight and eating. Cried, took him to numerous hospitals to where I had to be like, listen, y'all gonna help him or something's gonna happen up in this hospital today. You definitely felt hopeless because this is a young guy who is struggling for the love and attention that he needs and deserves. And even if we were giving it to him, it still was a challenge to make him understand you cannot beat yourself, you cannot hurt yourself, you cannot hurt others. We want you to live. Like, it got so depressing, like you thought he was gonna kill himself.
I knew right from the beginning that Ray was going to be one of the most interesting folks that I had worked with.
When we first came together as a team, we had just worked with a consultant who we had asked to help us with Ray, and their recommendation was to discharge him, with the idea that, well, if there isn't a program designed for him, he might as well stay with us where people know him and we know that he's loved.
Well, the first old approach was really just get his equipment and make sure he got his helmet and stuff on. Then we went to making him feel loved because, he is very loved by his family, but he just needed to be loved by us too.
It almost seems counter to what we're trying to do with him now, where now we'd rather try to make him feel safe and consoled and comfortable, where then they almost encouraged further isolation when he behaved badly.
When I first joined this team, we felt like we were almost running around like chickens with our heads cut off because there were so many problems happening, we didn't know what to do. One of the things that working with Tom was helpful is he really helped us remain calm, not be overwhelmed by the enormity of it.
I was asked to join Ray's team, and I thought that was an excellent opportunity to try to put into practice the theoretical basis that I had in terms of the neurosequential model and going to where Ray was at, because at that time he was telling us this is where I live, with the clapping, the tapping, the vocalizations that he would make. He was telling us, if you can come to me at my level and help me to feel safe in this place, that is going to be, in my estimation, a very good way to go to see if we can help Ray to begin to manage his own behavior.
His brain needs help feeling safe, feeling connected, feeling in control. So that's what we're doing.
His likes would be basically eating, being a little big brother to him. Because, you know, as he's older than us.
Ultimately, what we landed on is this perspective, okay? This is how we're going to play with Ray. This is how we're gonna hang out with him. And all the things that you guys already know that Ray likes, music, snuggles, clapping, those things that you already know he likes, he doesn't only like them, doing them with him is also healing to his brain. Clapping with him, using his rhythm. If he gives you the clap 3 times rhythm, stay on that with him. Move it around his body, tapping that rhythm on his chest, on his back, trying to get him to clap with you.
Any kind of rhythmic movement, rolling a ball, dancing to rhythm, having a bass drum. So once again, he can feel safe, but also feel understood that here's another person that's just like me because they're demonstrating the same behaviors that I am. Multiple times we had scheduled meetings every month to talk about how Ray was doing while he was in Rosemary Center, the main campus, keeping in mind that in about 12 to 18 months, he was going to transition to a waiver home.
So throughout the years, the way we tracked self-injury with Ray, he would have a few hundred up to 1,000 or 2,000 instances of self-injury a month. When I met him, he was averaging 14,000 instances of self-injury a month. It went down very fast to 12 times a month.
When I have a new staff coming in, I definitely start off by telling them like, oh, before we get to who Ray really is, let's get to what is important to Ray, what he needs around him, who he needs around him, and the type of environment he needs, like the happy-go-lucky.
Ray is nonverbal, so you don't know if he's missing a certain person that then came in and out of your life, to where at least our staff is here consistent. They can do the same consistent stuff with him. They end up knowing him, learning him, and basically just learning and loving him for who he is, and accepting that this is Ray.
So that's what I tried to do with him. I really tried to understand him, his language, what he liked.
Well, a lot of our individuals, you know, they can't necessarily tell us what's wrong and what's going on with them. And so that's why we just try our best to be there.
What do I need to put down to keep him safe and to keep myself calm? But I'll pretty much try to remain calm during any of his behaviors, because if I'm not calm, he's not gonna be calm. I have to lead by example. It's really, really sad to see him in those bad states, but I know that he'll get over it. So I kind of just look at it like a phase, be optimistic about it. He's not gonna be in this phase forever, but let's just overcome this obstacle.
Instead of just a focus on addressing the problem behaviors, we're focusing on what makes him happy. Ultimately, we're giving Ray's staff permission to love him. And the relationship is the most important thing that's going on there. The relationship is the most powerful force in the room. Harnessing that as a strength and something to build on is a relatively new thing. Healing happens in relationships. And ultimately, as Laura says, it's the relationship that heals.
You kind of got to remember why you're here and remember that it's always going to be better. And it has definitely gotten better.
This is one of the reasons why we find that a transdisciplinary team process, when you're getting multiple people from multiple disciplines sitting at a table together, talking to each other, when we're all really working together and listening together, it's the difference, something I picked up from someone, it's the difference from looking at parts of someone with a spotlight or really lighting up with a floodlight the whole thing and you're looking at the whole context. And that's what a good team process does.
This is Ray, this is what he did before, this is what he's doing now. These are some of the techniques that we used before. We all just kind of came together as a unit to make his life better. So, you know, he likes van rides, he loves to eat, keep him hydrated. Please make sure that he's comfortable and be affectionate with him.
So at the same time that we were meeting with Tom as Ray's team, and Tom had said, hey, let's use this neurosequential model to meet Ray where he's at. As an agency, we had been learning about trauma-informed care, and we're talking with Laura Pele about doing a TRC program overall for the whole agency. And Tom had said, I think this is what Ray needs. And that was really a sign that, okay, I think we're on to the right direction here.
I am a huge fan of Ray's staff. And again, this is a story that's been a long time in the making. So there are people in Ray's family who go all the way back. There are people around the state who have thought about this young man and worked with this young man, and it's been a long time putting all the different pieces together. And the truth is that human beings are far more alike than they are different. When you look at the neurobiology of trauma, for example, our brains get fearful in the same ways. You know, our bodies react to fear or stress or isolation in the same ways. We may express it differently, we may understand it differently, we may cope with it differently, but a fearful brain is a fearful brain. A broken heart is a broken heart. And relational approaches make sense from a neurological standpoint. They release the chemicals of pleasure and safety and connection.
In June of 2016, Ray and his 3 roommates moved into their new house.
And then when we got to the house, it was like a completely different change, but it was great. Like, we could give him better care. He looked better after behavior didn't take him weeks and weeks to heal. It has all of his Ray things in a space. Like, this is my area, this is my room. I feel like he can sense that, and this is his place. Like, it was great.
When they first moved in there, we showed him his bed, and he went and actually just jumped in it and laid there, put his fingers in his mouth, and like, yeah, this is the bed. I mean, from that twin size bed he had, it was like, I got the big room. I'm Raymond, yeah, I'm in here.
I've noticed that even after that, the more you guys started working with him on those relationship issues, he became happier and happier. But it seemed like a gradual improvement. Every time we saw him, things got better. Just having a whole group of people that seemed to be intent on making him better, or at least live a better life. I mean, the difference is just so dramatic that I've got to believe that he feels better inside. It's got to contribute to him feeling better.
So the most important thing in the trauma responsive care model is that we want everyone to feel safe, feel connected, and feel in control. That means that's what we want for the people who live in our group homes, the people that we support. That's what we want for our staff on the floor. That's what we want for each other. The details of how we do that is the calmer model. If I can pause, let myself be calm, and I'll be more responsive rather than reactive. We're looking at our job not so much as let's fix the problem behaviors that people have. It turns the job into how can we help people be happy? It's more like, hey, we all need the same thing. Let's create a world together where we all feel okay.
It's quieter, it's more peaceful, it's less stressful, it's calming.
When you encounter Ray through the eyes of the people who work with him every day, and when you get to spend a little bit of time with him, he's a person who brings something more. I sometimes get a feeling that it's hard to put into words, that there's a lot of energy surrounding that young man. I think for all of his challenges and all of his struggles, that almost seems to wrap around him or buoy him up. He has a presence that is hard to describe, and I think that that's something that people perceive very quickly about Ray.
We all got close with Ray. Raymond is different. I mean, you can feel it every day. I mean, Raymond is pretty cool. He got like a bright light to him.
Andrew, I really understands Ray, like, a lot.
Andrew is like a big teddy bear. He's always worried about Ray.
But that's my dude.
When we first kind of moved in the house, Andrew had him sitting in his car, like, listening to music. And it was just like they were just buddies sitting in the car listening to music.
The important thing is for Ray to have a good day. Definitely a lot of physical touching and laughing and music and playing and clapping and cuddling. He loves to cuddle. And food.
He likes easygoing staff, and he likes the staff that'll let him lay all over them, because he'll just plop down on you and throw his head on you. And
You like this song with Amigos, Bad and Bougie? Obviously, is Michael Jackson. If he likes the beat, and he's going with it.
One of the things that Tom had said we might do with Ray is roll a ball back and forth. And those of us who had worked with Ray a lot and just knew how he interacted with the world, it's like, okay, those things are nice. Ray's never going to be able to roll a ball back to us, but that's okay. I got a text from the staff at Ray's house saying, hey, here's video of Ray catching a ball.
Like him catching the ball that day was like, I felt so accomplished. I'm like, yes, like he's grasping something, he's learning something. Like these are skills that he's never gonna lose.
Every time Ray catches his ball, I'm like, okay, we're gonna get Ray ready for the NFL. Like, I don't know. After that, it's just like you don't know what he can possibly do. Like, so it's just more like, well, what are we gonna come together as a team and work on Ray doing?
Trauma responsive care pulls together a lot of thoughts and feelings we've had in this field for a long time and gives it an organized operational way to proceed. So relational interventions and approaches are the heart of the philosophy of trauma responsive care. They are very much at the center of what I see Rosemary doing, and they're where I think our field should be heading.
I think with people like Ray, their intellectual and physical disabilities are isolating as it is, and to try to address the behaviors by further isolation, we've seen that it doesn't seem to work. The difference between your program and what Kennedy Krieger was doing, they also seem to be more into using things that were restricted. For a couple years, he actually had to be restrained, strapped into bed. At the time, I think that they thought that that was for his best protection.
When problems come back, we know that Ray will struggle again, but we don't feel like we're just throwing things out and seeing what happens. We feel like there's a little light there. We're making more educated guesses, not just stabbing at things in the dark.
And I think where you guys are headed are trying more to create an environment of freedom, to make that person feel a little more consoled so they can worry about just satisfying their own basic needs in life.
Like now where Selena said he's going to Walmart, I would like to see him get out more, do the stuff that he enjoyed, maybe go to a couple of concerts, but I just want him to live a successful life, a happy life, a life that he deserved to live, and for other people just to accept him.
I think I'd like to see him live a long, happy life. He's probably going to outlive us all, I'm sure. He'll have the last laugh. That's, if anything, the basic thing I see for him for the future is just a happy life in a place that he feels comfortable in and with people that he loves. To me, it's not that it's just going to help Ray. I mean, I'd like to look at it selfishly, thinking this is going to be great for Ray, but I think of all the people that this could help besides Ray. You know, if we can prevent some of the things that have happened to Ray in the future from happening to other people, I think that's a fantastic thing. And I think it's a great thing they're doing. And I appreciate it a lot. And I think Ray does too.